Hello everybody and welcome back to Bibles on a Budget. My name is CJ and today we are taking a look at the Legacy Standard Bible from the folks at Steadfast Bibles. But this is no ordinary LSB. This is the large print wide margin. So if you are somebody who follows Bible stuff, you probably know about the Legacy Standard Bible version. But if you are someone who is not familiar with this, let me give you a brief rundown. The LSB is a joint effort from the folks at Lockman who have the copyright to the New American Standard Bible 95 and the new update, which is the current 2020 edition. They worked with John MacArthur, the folks at his master's university and master's seminary, along with his charitable fund and the folks at 316 Publishing to make this Bible. Basically what this is supposed to be an update to the 1995 edition of the New American Standard Bible, which is a very popular Bible among many evangelical Christians, different ilks, different peoples, including the Reformed crowd. The Reformed crowd loves themselves some NASB, especially John MacArthur. If you're familiar with John MacArthur, he's preached out of the NASB for many years. But now he has basically his own version of the Bible. Now, let me give you a brief information. This is not like as far as I'm aware of, this is not a Bible that leans a certain way. You may read it and there may be some places where it may seem a little Reformed if you're familiar with Reformed theology, but overall I think this is probably a pretty solid Bible version. So let's take a look at the outside. This is the hardback because, again, Bible's on a budget. This is the hardback version. This is black, very solid. On the front you have the LSB logo along with Legacy Standard Bible. On the side here, you have the spine, Holy Bible, Legacy Standard Bible, and then also Steadfast Bibles down here. On the back, you have Steadfast Bibles, and you also see the barcode and the ISBN, and it was also printed in Korea. So let us get into the Legacy Standard Bible here. One thing that, I don't know if you noticed this when I was showing you this, but it does not have page gilding. Let me just say that right off the bat. This does not have page gilding. It does have a double-sided satin ribbon in black. It does have black head and tail bands as well. So without further ado, let's get into the Bible. Again, it's a hardback, so it is paper paste down, super solid, nice. There's the end sheet, just plain white. And here we go. We are into the Bible itself here. So again, Legacy Standard Bible, large print, wide margin, and steadfast. And I hope my camera's not blowing this out because this is pretty white, like really nice and white. So here you have the copyright page with the different ISBNs for the different editions of this particular Bible and even the different editions of the Legacy Standard Bible, because this not only comes in a wide margin, but it also comes in a handy size. It comes in a double column, which we will take a look at in a future review. It comes in multiple cover options for whatever suits your fancy if you can afford those. But here's the forward. On the forward, you will find some information about the Legacy Standard Bible. So if you want to pause and read that, if you can, go ahead. And then I'll just give you an opportunity to look at the next few pages if you want to read those. Go ahead. Here's the last few pages of the preface. And then we have the explanation of the general format here. So paragraphs are designated by bold-faced verse numbers and letters. We will see that in a second as we get into the text itself. Quotation marks, are used in accordance with modern English. Personal pronouns for deity are capitalized. Italics are used to indicate words that are not found in the original Hebrew, Aramaic, or Greek, but are implied by it. Small caps are used in the New Testament to indicate Old Testament quotes or obvious references to Old Testament quotes. And then asterisks, this is very interesting. So it says asterisks are used to mark present tense verbs in Greek which have been translated with an English past tense in order to conform to modern usage. For example, the historical presence. That's kind of a grammatical thing. I can't explain that right now to you, but check it out. It's really interesting. And then also brackets to indicate words probably not in original writings. Over here we have the books of the Bible. Old Testament, Genesis to Malachi, Matthew to Revelation. This is also a red letter Bible. I will show you that in a second, but I want to go back to the preface here. You probably saw this if you read it after I gave you an opportunity to pause it. But there is something interesting about this Bible. If you look here, it talks about the names of God. And typically, the Lord has been called Lord in our English Bibles with capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. But in this version of the Bible, if you can see down there, it says God's covenant name, which is the capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. God's covenant name is rendered as Yahweh. The meaning and implication of this name is God's self-deriving, ongoing, and never-ending existence. So you will see that in places you typically see the capital L, capital O, capital R, capital D. I feel like I'm about to sing a song from Sesame Street about that. Also, you look at the terminology for slaves. They're wanting to be very consistent in the translation. So what they have done is here in the New Testament, they translate the word doulos as slave instead of other versions as they translate it as servant or bondservant. Here they translate it as slave. So you will see, for example, where it talks about Romans 6:16 and 22, says that we are now slaves of Christ. And obviously for some people, slaves have the word slave has a stronger connotation. Calling someone a slave to sin, to me, means that this person is just completely unable to escape. And then if somebody is a servant of Christ, they're able to serve Christ. They're not slaves in the sense that they're forced to do things. Servant and slave, in my mind, has a different connotation. But it also seems that the word ebed in Hebrew is also slave. That typically is what the Hebrews were called in Egypt. They were called slaves. All right, so let's get into the main body of the text. We're going to show Genesis real quick, but let's look at the opening page, which I really like. I like this simple setup, LSB. You got this little ornate line, and then Old Testament. One thing you will notice in this Bible, and I'm going to show you right away, is that there is an accent color. It is red. I like red. Red and black, super cool. So the books of the Bible up here are in red. The bold chapter numbers are also in red. And also, let me show you this. At the top, the page numbers and the location where you're at. So this is, let me show you a little clearer. Genesis chapter 3, and this is page 4 into the text. They are also in red. But let me show you the other thing I was telling you about earlier from the general format, which is the bold, if you can see those, the bold numbers. Let me get that in there for you. Those indicate a new paragraph. So you will see that throughout the Bible. This is also a verse-by-verse format. They, as far as I'm aware of, they do not have paragraph formats yet. I know a lot of people like verse-by-verse when they're preaching, and I know a lot of people like paragraph when they're reading because paragraphs keep everything in context, whereas somebody could take a verse out of context, out of a larger chunk of things, right? So here you go. Also, you'll notice at the bottom that there is no references and no translator notes. This is super clean text, nothing there. I did see in another version of another edition of this Bible, that there have been like some notes at the bottom to say like, hey, this is what this measurement means. I don't know if that's in this Bible. I have not seen it yet, but there you go. Now we get an opportunity to look at these margins. The margins themselves are 1.33 inches. So when I look at these actually look pretty decent. I don't know your writing style. I don't know if you're a person who does mark in your Bible or not, but these might be enough for some, simple notes. You might want to do a little design if you're kind of a drawing person. In some places where there is prose, like right here, where the man is talking about his wife, there is a little extra bit of like space there, but it's mostly on the sides. There's not a lot of space here or in the gutter or on the bottom. The bottom especially is just lacking in any space. There's really, like, you can just like write a little line there maybe, but there's that. Speaking of prose and poetry, let us go to a section of poetry, whether that be Psalms or Proverbs. So here's Proverbs. So you can kind of see how this is rendered. In some places you will find some separation in these, probably separation in the paragraphs, but sometimes you will also find them together, which is really strange to me. So there you go. That's what prose looks like. Also, here is an example of where they put Yahweh. It says, "My son, fear Yahweh." You will find Yahweh in places like in Exodus, or even here in 1 Samuel, where it says, "For Yahweh will not abandon his people on account of his great name, because Yahweh has been pleased to make you a people for himself." So there you go. So there's that example of Yahweh. So let us go into the New Testament. Oh, and here's another thing I want to show you. Typically in English Bibles, you have these things called acrostics. And what they are is, in Hebrew, every line of a part of a verse, I guess like a paragraph or something, starts with the first letter of the Hebrew alphabet. So as you can see, typically, normally, in other Bibles, if I can find it real quick, you will have this in places like Psalms 119. But here in the LSB, they do it in other places. They do it here in Lamentations. They did it there in Psalms 37, right? So you have that acrostics pretty much everywhere, that it is in the Hebrew text. So this is not them just inserting it randomly. This is them looking at the Hebrew text and saying like, oh, look at this, there's an acrostic, let's do it. So they're highlighting the fact that there's an acrostic, and the acrostics are also highlighted in red. Before I even go on further, here's the ribbon. It's black, but it's also kind of brown. So, but it's a nice little ribbon. It's not super bad. All right, so let's get to the New Testament here. And again, like I said earlier, this is a red letter edition. So when I look at the red letter looks nice. I'm not a red letter aficionado, so I can't give you any like, oh, the red letter's it's bleeding here, it's doing, all that stuff. I can't give you that information. I'm not to that understanding like some of my fellow Bible readers and Bible reviewers. But here's another example of a unique thing about the LSB and the NASB, and that is the quotes from the New Testament are in small caps. So here in verse 42, "The Lord said to my Lord, sit at my right hand until I put your enemies as a footstool for your feet." So there you go. So there's that as well. And one thing you'll also notice is that the verse numbers, when Christ is speaking, are in red. That can be a little confusing. Let me show you. It's kind of a little distracting. So for instance, here when Christ is talking about the parable of the 10 virgins, you'll see that everything in this spot right here, other than the section headings, are in red. So it's kind of distracting. I don't know why they decided to do that, but like look at this. It's just a giant wall of red on both sides. Like, you have this black for the headings to break it up, but you have this giant wall of red. And I know there's people who love red letters, and I know there's people who don't like them. So if you don't like them, this may not be a Bible for you. Let us go to the back of the Bible. We're going to take a look at one of the simple features that there is in this Bible, and that is the monetary units. So you do have monetary units. They are rendered in their original forms and then given some approximations in American or metric things. That's for measurements, not for money. But this is going to explain to you what the money means. And then on the next page, you do have the weights and measures. I got a little confused there. So again, rendered in their original way. So you have bath and cubit and something like a homer, or what is a Sabbath day journey, and it will tell you in approximations of American and metric units. And then after that, you have 14 pages of dot matrix paper, dot matrix note paper. I don't know how to use this. I prefer lines if I'm going to write and stuff. I don't even use this kind of page. I don't use this stuff in the back of my Bible anyway. But if you're somebody who likes to have these extra pages, there you go. And you use dot matrix, there you go. Alrighty, so final verdict. What do I think about this Bible? 1, it is strong, it is sturdy. I love black. I love the gold and such. This stuff is not stamped in, but it's a super simple Bible. The price on this Bible is about $50. As of the recording, it is on sale for $40, so you can pick this up for $40. But you know, if you're somebody who wants to use the LSB and you want a nice, hard, sturdy, wide margin with large print, this is a 10.5 font. I forgot to mention that, 10.5. You know, I think it's great. $50 for me, I don't know if that's justifiable in my book. You know, but you have to be that. You have to determine that for yourself. Alrighty, folks. Thank you so much for watching this review. Thank you so much for helping me reach over 100 subscribers. I really appreciate that. Remember, folks, the truth does not have to be expensive. See you in the next review.